Warning: due to sensitive content, viewer discretion is advised. Eye candy, fan service, or sex appeal. It's been around in the world of pop culture for decades, even to this very day. Eye candy includes, but is not limited to, scantily clad people.
It's time we settle things once and for all.
Gray, your clothes.
I don't have time for that.
Panty shots, and even verbal sexual humor.
Oh, you have to be careful and use protection.
What? It exists in all forms of pop culture. Movies, books, television, music videos, and even video games. You can find eye candy in many a video game, especially the fighting games. Scarcely had there been a video game franchise as awesome or as titillating as Dead or Alive. Released in 1996 by Tecmo, the good people that brought us Ninja Gaiden, Dead or Alive got its start in the arcades, and in home consoles like the Sega Saturn. But it eventually grew in popularity thanks to Microsoft's Xbox consoles. The franchise inspired beach volleyball spin-offs as well as a live-action movie. Though the spin-offs did get a bit of flack, and the movie was a disaster. I myself am a good fan of the Dead or Alive games. It's basically Tecmo's mix of the fan service Capcom brought to Street Fighter and the 3D polygons Sega gave Virtua Fighter. When I finally got my own original Xbox in 2021, among the first games I collected for it were every Dead or Alive game released for that console. And I played them quite a bit. Sorry, Halo. On this episode of Gaming Delight, we're going to take a look at the first 3 games in the Dead or Alive series, beginning with the game that started it all. Dead or Alive in the arcades and on the Sega Saturn. During the 1990s, Tecmo was in a slump. Despite popular games such as the Ninja Gaiden and Tecmo Bowl series, the company was on the verge of bankruptcy. That's where Tomonobu Itagaki comes in. Itagaki joined Tecmo in 1992 and was a graphic designer for the Super Famicom version of Tecmo Super Bowl. Management at Tecmo asked him to develop a fighting game similar to Sega's Virtua Fighter. Now Virtua Fighter. This game was a massive hit in both the arcades and on home consoles. Released in 1993 in arcades all over, and as a launch title for the Sega Saturn in 1994, Yu Suzuki's Virtua Fighter sold over 40,000 arcade cabinets and over 1 million copies for the Saturn. It even spawned a more successful sequel for both the arcades and the Saturn. Back to Tecmo. Tomonobu Itagaki had decided to develop a game based around Sega's Model 2 arcade board, the same hardware Sega used to make Virtua Fighter 2. Itagaki chose the Model 2 because it was the most advanced for third-party developers, and that the Model 3 was meant to be Sega's board. For this new game, Itagaki implemented a new fighting system, counterattacking. Basically, attacking the opponent when they're about to attack you. Something pretty much no fighting game prior actually utilized. The game would also utilize motion capture technology to make the game seem more realistic. Itagaki also added more provocative physics, which wasn't exactly new to video games. The concept was actually implemented in early 90s games such as SNK's Fatal Fury, the character in particular, Mai Shiranui. Plus, there were some breast physics in Tecmo's own Tokidensho Angel Eyes. Itagaki wanted this game to emphasize this more than any previous game by bringing it into the third dimension. In shorter terms, he wanted his games to emphasize sexuality and violence. Quite the man of culture, wouldn't you say? Itagaki formed the Tecmo division Team Ninja. Tecmo eventually gave the game the name Dead or Alive, based on the financial situation the company was facing.
Dead or Alive literally means dead or alive. For the company, it was a very critical situation. That's how he came up with the title. Tomonobu Itagaki, G4.
Gaming Delight will return in a moment.
最も過激な戦い
伝説の格闘ゲームデッド・オア・アライブ。
あなたに私は倒せない。
In February of 1996, Sega announced that they would be licensing their Model 2 arcade hardware to third-party developers. One of the games unveiled at the show was the completed Dead or Alive. On November 26, 1996, Dead or Alive was officially released to arcades worldwide. In the game, you're given a choice of one of 8 characters competing in the Dead or Alive tournament. Kasumi, the lead character, is a ninja princess of the Mugen Tenshin clan. She has abandoned her village to hunt for the evil Raido, an evil ninja exiled from the clan who crippled Kasumi's older brother Hayate. Ryu Hayabusa is the ninja hero of the Hayabusa clan from Ninja Gaiden. His goal is to enter the tournament simply for the sake of challenge. Jan Li is a Jeet Kune Do artist from China, modeled after actor Bruce Lee.
Oh, don't hit back.
His goal in the tournament is to demonstrate his skills against strong opponents. Lei Fang is a Taikyo-ken prodigy from China. She enters the tournament in hopes of beating Jan Li. Zack is an eccentric disc jockey from the United States who specializes in Muay Thai boxing. His tournament goal? Win the prize money. Enough said. Gen Fu wants the prize money too, but to help his ill granddaughter. Hailing from China, he's a martial arts master, and he runs a bookstore. Bayman is a mercenary from Russia who was hired to assassinate Fane Douglas, the CEO and founder of the tournament. And finally, Tina Armstrong is a professional wrestler from the United States, merely entering the tournament for attention, nothing more. Whichever fighter you choose, you face off against 8 opponents, including the one you chose. If a fighter gets knocked into the danger zone, they take additional damage and get launched into the air and back down. Win 2 out of 3, you advance to the next round. You can also win by knocking the opponent out of the ring. As with every fighting game, if you lose a match, you have the option to continue. Once you beat all 8, you get to take on the final boss, Raito. Raito happens to be Kasumi's uncle. He'd been mentally unstable as he'd been jealous of his younger brother Shiden, who was always better than Raito in every way. After he found his father refused to let him lead Mugen Tenshin, Raito lost his sanity completely and abandoned his clan. Now let's go over my opinions on the characters. I prefer Kasumi above all. Best build, best outfit, best kicks, and probably the biggest heart. Hayabusa happens to be my favorite among the male characters. Ninja Gaiden notwithstanding, he's basically Kasumi's male counterpart. Jan Lee, his battle cries really irk me and throw me off. Why must Bruce Lee style battle cries always do this to me? First Fei Long in Street Fighter, now him. Not that I have anything against Liu Kang of Mortal Kombat. When I fight Jan Lee, in most cases he's usually the first opponent to whom I lose. I prefer Lei Fang over him by a mile. She's basically Dead or Alive's very own Chun-Li, minus all the rapid kicking. Zack, being the first opponent you face, is basically the easiest opponent. Despite that, he's actually a pretty decent fighter if you're controlling him. Genfu, oh boy. His defenses are as fast as a speedy blue hedgehog. When I fight him, I could barely get a few hits on him. Then again, the game is all about counterattacking. Bayman, I'm not sure what to say about him. I mean, sure, he's got muscle, thus making for a strong opponent. But on the other hand, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. Tina is another favorite of mine. If she were real, she'd definitely make for an amazing WWE diva. As for Raito, boy oh boy is he one tough cookie. Yes, his defenses pale in comparison to Genfu's, but his offenses outweigh them significantly. Nevertheless, I find him one of the best antagonists in a fighting game. I wonder if he could actually beat M. Bison. After the game's release, critics heaped praise upon the game. At the start of 1997, Japanese publication Game Machine called it the most popular game of the past 2 weeks. Next Generation magazine commented, "A fighting game that mimics Virtua Fighter 2 in its look and feel to a frightening degree. Dead or Alive boasts smooth control, crisp polygonal graphics, and an attitude that may enable this game to stand on its own despite its familiar origins." Dead or Alive proved to be a big comeback for Tecmo, having made a profit of over $9.2 million in 1996, thus saving the company from bankruptcy. The success was enough for Tecmo to begin working on ports of the game. A Nintendo 64 port by Acclaim was rumored, but was never released. The most definitive port of the game is the one released for the Sega Saturn. Unlike in the arcade, Dead or Alive on the Saturn actually has an opening cinematic. Plus, you can adjust the difficulty, the danger zone, and the number of fights required to win a match. There's also a Kumite mode, pitting you in 30, 50, or 100 matches. You also have training, allowing you to simply train to get the moves down pat. Survival has you fighting an indefinite number of opponents until you lose a match. In Time Attack, you have to beat 8 opponents as fast as possible. But you can't change the difficulty for this mode, and in the options menu, you can decide whether or not to turn off the breast physics. You can also unlock some new costumes, like a schoolgirl outfit for Kasumi or a cowgirl outfit for Tina. As an added bonus, if you insert the disc into a PC's CD-ROM drive, go to its file listing, and click the Omake folder. Inside you'll find 10 wallpapers of the characters. The girls each have 2, and the guys each have 1. Dead or Alive was released for the Sega Saturn on October 9th, 1997 in Japan. Critics once again loved the game. Even critics in North America and Europe raved all about it. Due in large part to the Saturn's poor reception in the West since its premature North American launch, Dead or Alive never saw a release on the Saturn outside of Japan. However, in March of 1998, the game found its way to the Sony PlayStation in Japan and North America. Europe would receive it 4 months later. The PlayStation version included much of the Saturn port's features, except among other changes, it was made on a different graphics engine, and there are 2 new characters. Bass Armstrong, Tina's father, is a professional wrestling champ trying to stop his daughter from attracting so much attention. And Ayane is a kunoichi from the Mugen Tenshin clan. I'd mention more of her, but that'll have to wait until I cover the sequel later. Also, Raito's entrance is completely omitted in this version. Oh, and the CD-ROM wallpaper trick? It works for the PlayStation version as well. Like the Saturn port, the PlayStation port also received praise, sometimes even better than the Saturn port. IGN commented, "The Model 2 graphics have been ported over to the PlayStation better than they've ever been on the Saturn, and we suspect Sega would be in a much better position today if it just developed games on the PlayStation." Many elements from the PlayStation version eventually made it to the arcades in an upgrade to the original game, Dead or Alive++. However, aside from the praise over the PlayStation version, Tomonobu Itagaki considered the Saturn version, quote, his personal favorite.
The quality of the Saturn game was the best, we think. It was my personal favorite. It was the first game I fully produced as well. So it has great personal significance for me. Tomonobu Itagaki.
Personally, I prefer the Saturn version as well. It may not have the improvements of the PlayStation version, most notably Ayane, but it's the version I played most, and it feels a lot like Virtua Fighter. And yes, I'm well aware it was built on the Virtua Fighter 2 engine. Aside from importing, North American gamers wouldn't see the more definitive home version until 2004, when Tecmo released Dead or Alive Ultimate for the Xbox. Dead or Alive Ultimate is a compilation of the first 2 Dead or Alive games enhanced for the Xbox. This is the version of the original game that got me into it, but more on that later. While I highly recommend the Saturn version, the PlayStation version, as well as Dead or Alive Ultimate on the Xbox, are pretty enjoyable too. With Dead or Alive's success, Team Ninja started development of the sequel. This time it would run on a more powerful Sega arcade board, the Naomi, or New Arcade Operation Machine Idea. Gaming Delight will return in a moment.
ユーザープロファイルシステム搭載で君だけの戦いが実現する空前のハイクオリティ&パワードリームキャスト版 Dead or Alive 2お前の負けだ
The Sega Naomi arcade board was home to many of Sega's 3D arcade hits, such as The House of the Dead 2, Power Stone, and Crazy Taxi. The same architecture would also be used on Sega's next home console, the Dreamcast. Tomonobu Itagaki decided that his Dead or Alive sequel would be developed for this arcade hardware as well as the new console. In hopes of emulating beautiful scenes of martial arts moves, Itagaki invited martial artists for motion capture, thus smoothing out the characters. Team Ninja also decided to scrap the danger zone element from the first game and develop multi-tiered stages. This way, fighters could be knocked to lower levels of the stage, where the fight would resume. They also implemented a tag team battle option, in which 2 players could play at once. With the new sequel came a new story and new characters. Ein is a karateka who was abandoned in the Black Forest of Germany. However, when he encounters Kasumi, she recognizes him as her older brother Hayate.
だってお兄さんじゃ。
Suffering from amnesia, Ein joins the second Dead or Alive tournament to seek out his long-forgotten past. In combat, Ein shows no mercy. Helena Douglas is an opera singer from France, seeking out the assassin who murdered her parents and attempted to take her life. She enters the tournament to find the truth, having discovered that the attempt on her life and the deaths of her parents were connected to it. Leon is a mercenary from Italy who lost his lover Lauren, a young thief. Leon enters the tournament to fulfill Lauren's last wish. Kasumi Alpha is an evil clone of the real Kasumi created by the Dead or Alive Tournament Executive Committee as part of Project Alpha, which aims to develop the perfect combatant. This fighter is unplayable. Goyakumine Bankotsubo, aka Tengu, is the final boss of this game. After murdering his leader, he escaped his world and made his way to Earth. His intent is to spread chaos all over. Plus, not only is Ayane playable out of the box, but her character's storyline is fleshed out. She's actually Kasumi and Hayate's younger half-sister and cousin. The thing is that while all three came from the same mother, Ayane is actually the biological daughter of Raido, who had raped his brother's wife Ayame, and was the catalyst for Ayane being an outcast. She had wanted to get revenge on Raido by killing him in the first tournament, but Kasumi had beaten her to the punch. For a long while, she had resented Kasumi for leaving her village and had entered the tournament in pursuit of her. Dead or Alive 2 was released to arcades on October 16, 1999 in Japan. It profited over $2 million, and critics once again loved the game. In its December 15, 1999 issue, Game Machine listed Dead or Alive 2 as their second most successful arcade game of the month. In 2000, the arcade game would not only hit the Western market, but it also saw an upgrade worldwide, Millennium Edition. Not much has changed, other than characters getting new costumes, and it wouldn't be long before home consoles would see the game. Dead or Alive 2 was released for the Sega Dreamcast on February 29, 2000, Leap Day in North America, April 28, 2000 in Europe, and September 28, 2000 in Japan. And again, critics hailed it. Next Generation Magazine's Greg Orlando rated it a perfect score of 5 out of 5, stating, "You'd have to be dead and buried not to enjoy Dead or Alive 2. The Dreamcast version of the game not only utilizes the perks of the Millennium Edition of the arcade game, but it also has a simpler hold system, a versus mode, a sparring mode, and a team battle mode, which can allow for up to 4 players. There are also no unlockables. However, if you insert the disc into the CD-ROM drive of your computer, access the disc, and you'll find a folder named Bonus. Inside that folder, you'll find shots of the girls in swimsuits." A month after the release of the Dreamcast version of the game in North America, Tecmo would release another console port of the game, this time for Sony's latest console, the PlayStation 2. This version of the game was released in Japan on March 30th, 2000. This version includes new stages and unlockable costumes. However, despite receiving good reviews, the port was criticized for being buggy and locking up on the versus mode. Tomonobu Itagaki, who was not a fan of the PS2's complex architecture, intended to postpone the game, but the higher-ups at Tecmo wouldn't budge. The port only took 2 months to complete. Tecmo soon realized their mistake and reworked the port. They soon re-released it in the fourth quarter of 2000 worldwide as Dead or Alive 2 Hardcore, just in time for the North American launch of the PlayStation 2.
Did you wait long?
Sorry, I'm not sweet.
Get ready, fly!
It was just the port Itagaki had hoped for in the first place. More playable characters, more costumes, and a gallery option. The cutscenes also ran at 60 frames per second, compared to the Dreamcast version's 30. Next Gen Magazine gave this version a perfect score as well. but it came from a different reviewer, Jeff Lundgren. This is the best looking, most full-featured, most packed with extras version of one of the best fighting games ever made, he said. So overall, Dead or Alive 2 is a huge improvement over the original. Not just in the arcades, but on the Dreamcast and the PlayStation 2. After the second game, Team Ninja went to work on another Dead or Alive game, but this time it was to be a home console exclusive. With the Dreamcast fizzling out, the development team decided on developing Dead or Alive 3 for the newest contender in the video game industry. Gaming Delight will return in a moment.
Well, I only play it for the fighting. I appreciate the expansive multi-tier environments and the 16 characters with the pixel shading bump mapping. And the rich plot development. Seriously, why else would I play it?
She kicks eye.
Rated T for teen.
Rated M for mature.
Hey!
Play with a friend or play with yourself. Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball. Tecmo. 100% games.
For hot beaches, there's no power greater than X.
In the early 2000s, following the release of Dead or Alive 2, Tecmo was ready for the next installment. However, to raise the bar further, Team Ninja made two bold moves: not to develop an arcade game, and to make it a console exclusive.
In the American market, even though you can still find arcades, it's pretty dead. So it's useless to provide arcade games for them. It's the same situation in Japan. So it's useless to provide arcade games for them as well. Tomonobu Itagaki, G4 Icons.
That's where computer company Microsoft comes in. Microsoft approached Tecmo about a deal to develop Dead or Alive 3 exclusive to their upcoming console, the Xbox. It was still in the development stages, and Microsoft was in need of console exclusives to show off the new system's capabilities. Itagaki was all in on this deal. After all, he always targeted the most powerful console on the market, and the Xbox was just what the doctor ordered. Its architecture was far more convenient to develop for than the PlayStation 2, and pretty much on the same level as the Dreamcast. And so, development of Dead or Alive 3 was underway. On January 3, 2001, Microsoft's Bill Gates and professional wrestler Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson unveiled the Xbox at the Winter Consumer Electronics Show.
It is truly the future of video games, and I'm very excited to simply be a part of it if you smell what The Rock is cooking.
4 months later, at E3 2001, Microsoft announced the release dates and prices for the system, and unveiled a variety of launch titles, including Halo and Dead or Alive 3. The game launched alongside the console on Thursday, November 15, 2001. The game and the system would reach Japan on February 22, 2002, along with the DOA3 arcade stick by Hori.
Get ready,
The third game, of course, introduces new characters. You got Brad Wong, a drunken wanderer from China. Brad spends 3 years seeking out a legendary drink from a riddle he hopes to bring to his master Chen. After all his wandering, he finds himself competing in the tournament. Christie is an assassin from Great Britain who excels in Shiguan martial arts. Her mission is to stop Helena Douglas from competing in the tournament so as to keep her employer's plans a secret.
Get ready.
Hitomi, an 18-year-old girl of German and Japanese descent, practices karate. She enters the third tournament to prove her independence. While taking a job as a waitress for the DOA Tournament Executive Committee, she reunites with Ain, who tells her the truth about himself. He's actually Hayate, the brother Kasumi has fought hard to avenge, thus confirming Kasumi's beliefs in the second game. He enters the tournament to assist Ayane and Ryu in their battle against Genra, a ninja master and Ayane's foster father, who betrayed the Mugen Tenshin clan and allied with the committee. Genra is the unplayable main antagonist of Dead or Alive 3, working for DOA Tech and taking the superhuman form of Omega. His final boss stage is actually different from your typical DOA fight. The camera angle captures the fight from behind the character you play as, which makes the fight quite awkward and pretty tricky. I also forgot to mention that this game features tracks from Aerosmith, including one for the opening scene. Within its first 5 months since release, Dead or Alive 3 managed to sell over 1 million copies, and overall 2 million. It became the best-selling game in the Dead or Alive franchise to this day, and one of the top 10 best-selling games for the original Xbox. Critics once again adored the game. Electronic Gaming Monthly gave it a score of 8 out of 10, and the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences gave it an award for Console Fighting Game of the Year and a nomination for Outstanding Achievement in Animation. The game was later re-released under the Platinum Hits label, and eventually received backwards compatibility on future Xbox consoles and became a downloadable title on Xbox Live. Well, that wraps up the first 3 installments of the Dead or Alive series. It's highly recommended that you add these to your library. But we're not quite done yet. As the second game was in development, fans had asked Tomonobu Itagaki to add a beach volleyball minigame, seeing as other fighting games had something similar. Itagaki decided against it, and following the success of Dead or Alive 3, he took the idea and made a completely standalone beach volleyball game, Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball. The game was released for the Xbox in January of 2003 in North America and Japan, and 2 months later in Europe. This game and its 2 sequels deserve an episode of their own. The 4th installment to Dead or Alive wouldn't be ready for a while. However, Team Ninja wanted to bring the franchise online, so they began development of a remake of Dead or Alive 2. They gave it the name Dead or Alive Online. But on January 14th, 2004, the game was renamed Dead or Alive Ultimate. Said Tony Tarpey, marketing manager at Tecmo, Dead or Alive Online only signifies a portion of this game, while the new name Dead or Alive Ultimate describes more accurately what fans will experience when they buy this game. Dead or Alive Ultimate was also given additional content, such as extra characters, redone voiceovers, and an upgraded version of the Sega Saturn port of the first game. Although the game was planned for a release in March of 2004, the game wouldn't see a release until 7 months later. Dead or Alive Ultimate was released in North America on October 26, 2004 for the Xbox. The game hit Japan a week later, and with it came an Xbox console and controller, each with a crystal blue shell to resemble Kasumi's outfit. The day after the game hit Japan, Prima Games released an official guidebook. Europe wouldn't see the game until February of 2005. The game came in a big box containing 2 discs, each in an Xbox case, and each game case with a pack of collectible trading cards. And of course, the game allowed for online multiplayer through Xbox Live, making it the first fighting game in Japan to offer such a feature, and the second worldwide, just after Mortal Kombat Deception. Now, what makes the Dead or Alive Ultimate versions of 1 and 2 different from the Sega Saturn port of the first game and all the previous ports of the second? Well, aside from both games gaining online functionality, for the first game, the title screen is completely different from the Saturn port, as if we didn't know. Sadly, since this is a port of the Saturn version, you don't get the additional characters from DOA++ or the PS1 version. Not much difference overall. The second game, aside from the obvious title screen, it's graphically better than the previous versions. The backgrounds are brand new, and the fighters look more detailed in the character selection screen. Mostly because it was based on the graphics engine used in Dead or Alive 3. In the Ultimate version, Hayabusa has an outfit similar to what he wore in Ninja Gaiden. Plus, Hitomi was added as a bonus character, provided you beat the story in Dead or Alive 3 on normal with Aim and save it to your console. What's more, this version has an additional opening cutscene, which shows Kasumi and Ayane's childhood. They didn't know they were sisters yet, but they were close friends. It also showed Genra's identity before his transformation, as well as Raido crippling Hayate, among other things. Basically, it's a prologue to the first 3 games. Overall, this is the best way to play Dead or Alive 2. In my opinion, of course. Upon release, Dead or Alive Ultimate was given favorable reviews. Famitsu Magazine gave it a score of 34 out of 40. Game Rankings scored it 84%, and Metacritic 83 out of 100. The game was given a Fighting Game of the Year award at the 2004 National Academy of Video Game Trade Reviewers Awards. In their Best of 2004 awards, IGN awarded the game Best Fighting Game and Best Xbox Graphics of the Year. It was also nominated for GameSpot's Best Fighting Game of the Year. Personally, I love Dead or Alive Ultimate. As I stated earlier, it was how I got into the first 2 games. If it weren't for the compilation, I'd never have gotten around to collecting the other DOA games. Gaming Delight will wrap up in a moment.
1, 2, 3.
遊びはドラマチックに進化した。戦う人へ。デッド・オア・ライブ3。Xbox.
And now, the competition you've all been waiting for. Hand-to-hand combat. Your wildest dreams come true in Dead or Alive Ultimate and Xbox Live. Real-time online action across town and across the globe. Get your double disc collector's edition now, rated M for mature. Dead or Alive Ultimate, fighting for global peace one kick at a time. No!
Well, this is where our retrospective ends, as I've got other topics to cover in the coming months. But when the time comes, I'll get to work on a retrospective for Dead or Alive 4 through 6, as well as Dimensions, and one for the extreme games as well. If you're a fan of sex appeal or fighting games, or a combination of both, Dead or Alive is definitely the series for you. Thanks again for watching Gaming the Light. Until next time, happy gaming!